coming back. The minute we got back to Joburg, it was straight into the DVD player and watching and going, I'll walk there.
Amazing.
That is amazing. You know, and I hate to wrap up at this point, but we have a session that starts at 12 that we kind of promised that we would air. You guys are more welcome to sit and watch it with us and come back after, or go take a break and come back after, because I'd love to continue this conversation. I do want the world to know that, you know, Alexandra May is bringing us a wonderful musical cafe on Sundays that just makes you feel like lighthearted and out. You know, I just feel like I'm in a cafe. And Grant's going to bring us some audacious music and history, and we're going to get these performers out there and amongst the world, not just in their country, but the world. But we're going to listen to some educational conversation as part of our obligation with IBM. So
fantastic.
Thank you. So you guys are more welcome to sit and watch it, or come back and join us after this.
Fantastic. Great, right, guys. It's really been nice to be on. And Alexandra, really nice meeting you, even though you live 10 minutes away from me.
It's nice meeting you, Grant.
Yeah, connecting the world.
We'll meet sometime soon at Broadacres or something.
Look at this. 100%. We connected the world, right?
All the best. Thank you very much, IBM TV, and chat to you all soon.
Thank you. Same.
Bye. Cool. Right. I'm also gonna beam out. Thank you, guys.
All right, awesome. Beam back in whenever. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Closed doors. One reason that physicians are so active on Facebook, for example, is that they can have private groups so that they can have conversations without their patients eavesdropping. You're also going to get an outsider's perspective. So I will let you know how physicians as a group respond to certain marketing message, and our intentions align. We are all here for the same reason. We are all here to help physicians thrive. This is all important to you right now because, first of all, most marketing advice is dead wrong, especially when it comes to engaging physicians. Physicians have been immune to marketing messages, but the world of physicians has changed in ways that you will learn about. So physicians are pivoting, and you are most likely pivoting. I hope that your existing clients are doing well. I hope that once we are not physical distancing anymore, that you will have a viable practice to return to. But I'm speaking with more and more financial services professionals who are thinking about pivoting, who are making investments in themselves so that they have the opportunity to serve lots of doctor clients as the year goes on. So very briefly, to give you my story, just so you know where I'm coming from, if my life had a bumper sticker, it would read, "Heal Thyself." I describe myself as an accidental surgeon. I was in a graduate program in physics when I had a surgical emergency. I was bleeding internally. By the time the doctors got in, about half of my blood volume was in my pelvis. I thought this was the end. This is my op note. I was so grateful to be alive that I knew I was going to be a doctor and save other people's lives like my own had been saved. I went into private practice in Seattle. I was primarily a breast surgeon. And once things settled, it was time for me to start my family. I faced some fertility issues, but was very pleased to be able to get pregnant with in vitro fertilization. Now, here's an early baby picture. My son at an 8-cell stage. I operated my whole pregnancy. It was great and gave birth to a beautiful, healthy son. I had a plan. I had 2 exam rooms and a procedure room. I converted one of my exam rooms to a nursery, and my office manager, Linda, took care of my son when I was operating. So things were okay until I couldn't really ignore the fact that my son was different than other children. And so I pushed my pediatrician for an evaluation, and he was diagnosed with broad spectrum developmental delay. That was the worst day of my life. He was enrolled in a special state-funded school. I wondered, what have I done to my son? I took a leave of absence from my practice to do whatever I needed to do to help my son. Well, one day I was doing laundry and I got a call. It was a lawyer asking me if I'd be willing to take a look at a case of medical negligence. I thought anything but another load of laundry. And that one case led to about 20 cases. You always hate getting these kinds of x-rays with surgical tools inside of the patient's belly. But anyway, things were sort of humming along in my new normal. And my son was retested after he'd been there for a year. And he actually got booted out of the school because he had met all of his developmental landmarks. He's 22 now. If you met him, you would never have any idea that he got off to this rocky start. Graduated college a year and a half early. He's broken powerlifting records. But anyway, getting back to him being booted out of school, I faced a decision. What should I do next? I could return to operating, but I thought, how many people have been in a life-threatening situation, saved other people's lives, been a family caregiver, seen how care went off track? And I decided, you know what? I am going to start consulting business, helping doctors and patients collaborate more effectively to get better medical care at a lower cost. This was in 2000. I thought this was going to be great, but I struggled and struggled and struggled. I calculated once, I've invested in as much in coaches and courses and mentors as I have in medical school. Well, I remember going to give a talk in Europe. I went to plug in my laptop. And of course, Europe is wired differently than the US. You can't just plug it in directly. You need an adapter to make this happen. And I thought, man, this is it. I, as a doctor, am wired differently than the business people I want to engage. And if I want to plug into them, I need to create an adapter between the world of business and the world of medicine. And once I did that, things transformed. So I'm humming along, and then 2008 rolls around. And I started hearing doctors talking about, tapping into their 401k to meet their payroll. I heard about doctors going bankrupt, and I started to realize, hey, maybe I'm not the only doctor who doesn't do a great job with money. So that's really when I decided that my big leverage move, if I really wanted to make an impact, was helping financial advisors create this adapter for themselves so that they could plug into the physicians who so needed their help. So for the past decade, I have been helping financial advisors successfully accelerate their practice growth by acquiring more doctor clients. Well, this talk is not about me. It's really about you. So what I'd like to do is take the lessons that I've learned over this long career and show them how you can use them to position yourself for business success by acquiring more doctor clients. All right, well, first, let's ask the question, why work with doctors? Well, the big answer is it's an application of Sutton's Law. When Willie Sutton was asked, why do you rob banks? He said, that's where the money is. And if you look at specific niches of clients that you could potentially serve, the numbers are there for you. In the US, there are about 800,000 practicing physicians and 200,000 practicing dentists. According to the US Department of Labor statistics, 9 out of the 10 top earners in the US call themselves doctor. Further, about 40% are age 50 or older. So there is a huge cohort, and doctors are not going to be outsourced to India. We're going to have them there. Now, every year, the AMA Insurance Agency does a retire preparedness survey among physicians. And according to the most recent study, only half of physicians were reported to be on track for retirement. Only half were working with professional financial advisors. And not surprisingly, those working with advisors were more likely to be in a position to be able to retire as they wanted to. Further, doctors tend to be very loyal clients. So if you look at the average high net worth client, acquisition is not as much of an issue as retention. For physicians, the opposite is true. There's a relatively high barrier to entry. And that's actually kind of good news if you want to work with doctors, because if you know how to overcome that barrier to entry, then you will be able to have the competitive advantage. And you will basically have a doctor-client for life, even if you make mistakes. Doctors tend to be very, very loyal. Further, doctors gossip sort of like teenage girls, and they will tell their friends and colleagues about you. The very first thing we doctors want to do is share helpful resources. So this puts you in a position of being the go-to guy or go-to gal among targeted groups of doctors who network together and communicate with each other and influence each other. Now, how important is this? Well, it's really important. One day I got a really big check. I went to my buddy Bob and I said, Bob, I just got a big check. What do I do? He said, Vicki, you need a financial advisor. Here, go see my guy, Paul. He does a good job. And as far as I was concerned, I had chosen Paul was going to be my guy. Paul would have had to do something just absolutely dreadful for me to say no to him. So this is a great market for so many reasons. Still, I hear things like, I'm so challenged. How do I get past the gatekeeper? How do I get doctors to pay attention? Well, physician engagement is different now for these three reasons. First of all, physicians face unprecedented challenges to their health. So this is from a private Facebook group from a stoic surgeon working in New York. The title is Feeling Scared. And that really caught my attention because this is an invulnerable person. The bottom line says, this is war and we are not okay. So those physicians who are in the trenches right now are worried about themselves. They're worried about potentially bringing this virus home and putting their family at risk. And I actually know physicians who are staying at hotels or they're staying in the guest room so that they're keeping their families safe. Second, physicians face unprecedented challenges to their income. So you know that the major therapeutic intervention to which we're all contributing is flattening the curve. We're doing everything that we can to make sure that the demand for healthcare services does not outstrip the supply. So one of the ways that we are doing this is we are deferring non-emergent cases. So the highest earning physician, all the ologists, the cardiologists, gastroenterologists, surgeons, they are at home right now. Most of them are finding that their incomes have decreased anywhere from 10 to 90%. I'm a fellow of the American College of Surgeons. They have been very proactive in launching a committee to help protect physician practices. They project that we're not going to be getting back to elective cases until the third quarter of 2020. Physicians do not have business skills to be able to weather a storm. No physician ever imagined that they would be in a position of having cash flow shut off. They never imagined that we would face a situation like this. And this is having impacts not just on individual physicians, but on healthcare organizations. The Mayo Clinic is the largest employer in the state of Minnesota. They recently projected a $3 billion, that's with a B, $billion shortfall for 2020. And they've responded to this proactively with furloughs and across the board salary cuts. Again, no physician ever imagined that they would be furloughed, that they would ever have to go backwards in their salaries. I just this morning heard about a physician who's 65, who's the head of an OB/GYN department. He had been furloughed because of his age. They were just concerned about it. And just yesterday, he was terminated. The hospital said that it would be too much liability to continue to employ him. And, you know, I would be really interested in Nick's take on all of this. But can employers terminate doctors because they're 65? You know, what does this mean for physicians? What does this mean for the physicians who are already behind in retirement planning? So there is acute financial pain now. The third major change is that physicians are at home and they're social. Now, yes, there are physicians in the trenches, and these are still very difficult physicians to reach. But probably your most ideal clients right now are available. I have financial advisors successfully engaging them on LinkedIn right now. I have advisors who are engaged in Facebook marketing campaigns. You can get a doctor on the phone, and doctors are social. So this is a time of huge opportunity. Physicians have acute financial pain. You have the expertise, and you can actually reach them and engage them right now. So let's ask the question, historically, why has it been so very challenging to engage physicians? Well, I'm going to talk about the three basic mistakes that are made. And these are mistakes that you definitely want to avoid. So mistake number one is to fail to bridge the cultural divide. So I already told you about my challenge when I tried to move from the world of medicine as a white coat into the world of business as a suit. And I see so many financial advisors making the exact same mistake as they try to engage physicians. Now, is this a big deal or a little deal? Well, let me just show you one of my favorite episodes from my learning channel, The Shark Tank. So a doctor had entered the Shark Tank to get funding for his company, Syndaber. He sold synthetic cadavers. This is $1 billion industry. He'd already had millions of dollars in sales, and the sharks were all engaged. I thought, man, this guy's going to get a 5-shark deal. But then the questions started. Mr. Wonderful asked about the revenue and the profitability. And there, on national TV, this doctor actually said, well, I suppose I could make a lot of money if I wanted to, but that's not really what's important to me. What's really most important is making a difference. With that, 4 sharks were out. He got a deal with Robert Herjavec that fell apart in a couple of weeks. What was the problem? It was not about the value of this investment. The problem was that the doctor was saying to his buyers, what's important to you is not important to me. Well, every day I see basically another reality TV show called, let's call it Surgeon's Lounge. So financial advisor, enters this room where 5 surgeons are sitting in plush leather chairs, and they want to deal with as many doctors as possible. But unfortunately, despite the value that they're bringing, they're just not speaking their buyer's language. And I believe that this is the number one problem. So having this adapter to adapt your message to doctors is critically important. And remember, for doctors, it's not about the money. For doctors, it's all about service. So I invite you to think of wealth in terms of the freedom to do what you want to do when you want to do it. Doctors like control. They want control of their financial destiny, and they are not in control right now. Further, it's important that you understand that doctors have a different relationship with money. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go into it, but if you'd like to drop me an email at Dr.Vicki, DRVICKI, at targetingdoctors.com, I would be more than happy to send you a digital version of my 2 most recent books, The Myth of the Rich Doctor and the 9 Money Mistakes That Doctors Make. These books are written for a doctor using medical metaphors, so not only can you get some insight about where doctors stand with money, some of the mistakes that they're making, but you can also adopt some language that you might want to use as you actually go out and engage with doctors. Mistake number 2 is failure to fit in. So doctors behave sort of like tropical fish. They tend to group together and move together under the direction of a leader. And they do it for the exact same reason that tropical fish do it, is to protect against predators. So there are many financial predators who have realized that, this is the place to go. And most physicians, including myself, have gotten into schemes of financial predators. I remember one of my colleagues, I hadn't seen her in a while, and I asked about her, and they said, "Oh, you haven't heard? Well, her office manager embezzled her entire retirement. It is gone. Diane went to a major depression, and she's not operating anymore." So what do doctors do? Well, if you're in the surgeon's lounge or the doctor's dining room, what you hear is doctors talking about their most recent DDD, their dumb doctor deal. "Oh, yeah, I just invested in some car washes and I'm doing great. Oh, I just invested in a marijuana farm and now I'm getting, 300% return on my investment." So instead of going to people with true expertise like you're an unknown. They don't know if they can trust you. Instead, they would rather get their financial advice from somebody that they do know that they can trust, at least trust to take care of patients. But that person may or may not have good financial expertise. So your goal is to think of the end in mind. And the end is to become the person whose name is passed around among doctors. And I will just tell you that the rate at which your practice grows is the rate at which you build trust. So there are specific strategies and tactics that you can use to add links in the chain of trust and become known inside of these groups of doctors. Mistake number 3 is to deliver an unappealing message. Now, the message that is most attractive to a business owner may or may not be attractive to doctors. In fact, it probably will not be. If you've got a great seminar, for example, that converts business owners at a high rate, I can almost promise you that this will not work with doctors. It's important that you give doctors things that they want. And what is attractive? Well, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. So you need to think about what's attractive right now to doctors. And so what can you do? What kind of message is working today? Well, it's to deliver these, what I call yummy treats. If you are a dog lover and you've ever trained your dog to come, you know that that can be a little challenge. You put your puppy on a sit stay and then issue the demand, come, and they'll probably look at you. And so you approach the dog and then the dog just takes off. And that's the way it is with doctors. If you try to chase doctors, they are just going to run off. But if you have a yummy treat, issue the command, come, and then give that yummy treat to the puppy. That's the best way to get them to you. So I think that the best thing that you can do right now to show that you can help doctors by actually helping doctors is have a collection of yummy treats. All right, so here are the things that are working right now. I've got a webinar about how physicians can generate revenue starting today. I delivered this for a financial advisor. He had 40 physicians signed up to attend this webinar. This is a hot topic. Maybe you can send them out some immediate lifelines, and I'll give you some specific examples that you can take to doctors. If a doctor is in private practice, and in the average community, about 20 to 30% of doctors are in private practice, 70 to 80% are employees, although I see the trend reversing as I look into the future. I see more and more physicians sort of capturing their autonomy back and launching private practices. Anyway, as you know, doctors get paid by seeing patients. They send a form to the insurance company with diagnostic and procedure codes, and then the insurance company pays the bulk of their bill. Of course, patients have copay, but the bulk of their revenue comes from the insurance companies. That's their primary payer. Well, the cynics would say that for insurance companies to hang on to their money, they will reject about 30% of the claims. Now, if doctors are doing in-house billing, the priority for them is taking care of patients. So the person who's doing the billing may be pulled off to attend to some task or another. The result is that most physicians are sitting on accounts receivable of tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. I actually spoke with a physician who admitted to me she has over $1 million in accounts receivables. One way of getting a very fast cash infusion is to outsource this billing. And if this is done correctly, doctors could see an immediate infusion of cash. When I mean immediate, I mean within the next 30 to 60 days. The way that outsourced billers get paid is that they collect a percentage of what they recover from insurance companies. So everyone's intentions are aligned. If you would like a recommendation for an outsourced biller in your area so that you can pass along a name, people that doctors will trust, please feel welcome to drop me a line and I'd be happy to make a recommendation. Next, you can help physicians navigate the federal programs. I'd be interested in what Nick and Max see as our futures unfold, whether there will be more programs, but not all physicians are successful in taking advantage of all of them. So you can help with that. By the way, if you go to my blog, there are a list of questions that doctors can bring to the IRS to mitigate their tax burdens during this difficult time. This does come from the American College of Surgeons, so that's another way that they might be able to conserve their cash. And then, of course, we all know that everything is open to negotiation. You can bring doctors the idea that they can negotiate with their medical malpractice carriers, they can negotiate their rent, they can negotiate the terms of their loans right now. Doctors in general have pretty poor negotiation skills, so maybe this is even a chance for you to offer and be their voice for them. Doctors, by the way, also need a business-minded person in order to just budget. Like, one of my financial advisors told me that a dentist approached him and said, look, I'm taking a look at my budget. I want to cancel my life insurance and disability insurance policies. Well, fortunately, my financial advisor client was able to talk this dentist out of it. But physicians really could use some help doing this, just taking a critical look at the budget and deciding what is or is not important. One thing that physicians can do, by the way, is to jump into telemedicine. Telemedicine has been around for a while. The reason that so many physicians are talking about telemedicine right now is that Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance companies are now paying for telemedicine visits. So there are a lot of things that physicians need to know in order to run a profitable telemedicine stream. And I have created an online training program for physicians doing this. And let me just give you a couple of examples of how telemedicine could be used. So I have a friend who's a retired emergency room physician. In the COVID pandemic, she really felt strongly that she wanted to help out. She wanted to see patients, help lower this burden on the healthcare system. And I just asked her very gently, well, and how are you going to keep yourself safe in the emergency room? Because she's 70 herself. And I suggested that she get involved with telemedicine. She did, and she absolutely loves it. She is able to help lots of patients. She's employed by teledocs. She makes all of, I think, $36 per patient visit. And if she works full time, she can generate about $100,000 on an annual basis. Now that's a fraction of what most specialists earn. But if there is a physician who's worried about paying the mortgage or who's worried about the kids' college tuition, that kind of income is nothing to sneeze at. So physicians in private practice can use telemedicine to generate revenue streams. Employed physicians can get involved with telemedicine as an employee to sort of stem the tide to make up the cash shortfalls. But I think one completely overlooked application is the possibility of transcending the doctor-patient relationship and offering all sorts of different services to people who may or may not be patients. For example, I know a pediatrician who's a sleep specialist with disabilities to get to sleep and to stay asleep. Well, think of all of the parents out there who might be interested in tapping into her expertise. So she could potentially have consultations with patients throughout the US or throughout the world, not establishing a doctor-patient relationship, but offering her expertise in a way that helps others. And the opportunities are endless. People are online right now. They are at home. And if you have any entrepreneurial-minded doctors who would like to brainstorm about what they could do, I cover part of this in ways that doctors can generate more revenue. But I would be more than happy to spend 15 minutes on the phone, talking with your doctor clients about how they could reinvent themselves. So just this morning, as I was telling you, I got a call from a financial advisor. He said, Dr. Vicki, remember that first client that you helped me get? Well, I need some help. Where can I get the link to this telemedicine? Because he has just been let go from the hospital. And I was talking about all of the things that I thought that he might want to consider rather than just jumping into telemedicine. For example, I think that being an expert in medical malpractice lawsuits, this was one of the most profitable activities I did on an hour-by-hour basis. This made me a better doctor. I could only do it 3 years after I stopped operating because a physician has to be familiar with the standard of care in that community. At the time of the Negligent Act, there was a 3-year statute of limitations in the state of Washington where I practiced. So once I was beyond 3 years, I couldn't speak reliably to what the standard of care is. But if you've got any physicians who are wondering about what to do, I highly recommend this. So that's one thing I suggested. The second thing I suggested is maybe he wants to make a transition to the C-suite of a hospital or the insurance companies, or maybe the pharmaceutical industry, or maybe a company that's selling medical devices. If somebody is already pleased with the life of being, an employee, this is something that can work very, very well. I also thought of the possibility, well, gee, I wonder if hospitals and clinics are going to be launching their own telemedicine service. Will there be a Mayo Clinic telemedicine line? And I suggested that maybe this doctor wants to approach his employer with the idea, how about if I head up the development of telemedicine at this institution? So people are pivoting. They are worried about their income. You help doctors with their money. You help them help their money grow. So just being there, bringing them these ideas are going to help you build the relationship and build trust. So once physicians are really back at work, you can then turn the attention back to, how are we going to recover from all of this market volatility? How am I going to create a plan to get on track for retirement? All right, I just want to take a little break here to see if there are any questions before I go on to sort of this next segment.
Well, several people, Vicki, this is Max, have asked if you could give your email again a little slower, or if you'll send it to me and Nick, then we could send it out to them afterwards.
Yeah. If you just send it to me, I'll send it out to them, Max.
Okay.
As long as you don't mind getting flooded with emails, Dr. Vicki.
I'll tell you, I am here to help. And
okay, well, then you're going to get a lot of fans, in case you didn't know.
Okay, so the easiest way is my website is targetingdoctors.com. And please feel welcome to visit. When you're there, you can sign up to get my regular tips so that, all the time I'm sending out ways that you can actually engage doctors. Feel welcome to look through the blog. There's just tons of content, ideas that can help you successfully engage more doctors now. And there's a little link on the bottom that you can contact me by email.
Okay, good. All right, yeah. This way the financial advisors will have a chance to interact with you and talk to you about this. It's a great topic. I agree with you, they make great clients, but I like them for another reason. They don't bother me unless it's important. Then they'll call me, but they won't call me just to want to chat. It's always something important. Then they go, okay, that's something to get together. But
well, Nick, let me ask you, what's your secret in acquiring doctor clients?
We have about 2,100 financial advisors around the country that go out and get the clients for us. So that's our secret. In other words, it's just mass numbers. And we've been around for 20 years. So it's not like this is our, first time. National Pension Partners have been around for quite some time. Just been in the industry for a long time. And what we do is help them with their retirement plans. But you're right. They do tend to get into some very interesting investments, and we put them in guaranteed fixed annuity whole life contracts that you can't lose money. Then we get to hear about all their other investments where they're going to make 300% and then they lose everything.
Right.
But at least they have that. At least they have our retirement plan, so I don't feel too bad. At least they have that. But they do need good financial advisors, and we do want to get there are a lot of good financial advisors. There's certified financial planners out there that we work with. They're good FAs. And frankly, you're right. They need a financial coach because so busy on their day-to-day business that now comes this, and it's really hard to evaluate unless you have a really good financial advisor behind you. Got any other questions, Max, on the boards? Because you got the boards.
Nothing other than emails so far, but I was going to make a comment because I came into this business of financial advice up in Seattle.
Yeah, him and I both lived in Seattle.
I started working with the American College of Pathology and then the Washington State Society of Pathologists. And I found out something interesting, and it fits into some of the things you've said. Through the association, they had their liability insurance available. Pathologists were lumped into a group of general practitioners that paid a lot more. And what I learned is pathologists on the list of lawsuits, who do I sue? It's the pathologist isn't at the top of the list. They're down a little ways.
Right.
And so the association coverage was actually better and about 40% less than what most of the pathologists were paying.
Right.
And so I went out and took that. And even though I made almost nothing off of that, in fact, the American College contacted me and offered me money to do what I did, because I went out and there were about 98 doctors who were pathologists at the time in Washington who were independent, at least not employees of the hospital. Maybe their group was contacted by the hospital. And I did business with about 78 of them. And so the American College of Pathology was contacting me saying, how are you doing this? But the beauty of it to me is by bringing them that offer, getting to know them, speaking at their events, which I did, and then going in and talking to them about tax qualified salary continuation. You said, their worry is, how do I keep this going if something happens? And having discussions about that, suddenly I found myself having a constant flow of these pathologists who also introduced me to some other physicians. And one of them was quite interesting. I won't mention his name, but he was an orthopedic surgeon, and he had a racquetball court in his basement and of his building. And because he loved racquetball, loved working out. So he and I are down there working out. We were playing racquetball one day, and I kind of tweaked my knee, and I was complaining about it. And he says, let me take a look at that. And he says, you ought to come in and get x-rays. So I come in and get x-rays, and he looks at everything, and he says, we got to schedule another game. You beat me last time in racquetball. But he says, you're going to have knee replacement someday. And we probably shouldn't be doing this, but I can't let you beat me. So let's keep going.
Max, I want to zero in on something that you said that people on the line can use. And that is the power of medical associations. So
Yes.
Think about this right now. The American College of Surgeons has this practice protection committee, right? They have all of these suggestions for surgeons. And one of them is, find a financial advisor who can help you with this. Well, instead of waiting for doctors to find financial advisors, I have been suggesting to people in my community that they reach out to the American College of Surgeons and say, hey, look, right here you said that you're recommending that surgeons work with financial advisors. Might I be able to offer some value to you? And guess what? The executive directors are saying yes, because if they're coming in with 10 ways that physicians can generate more revenue, this works out brilliantly. And here's the even better part. My book, The Myth of the Rich Doctors and the 9 Money Mistakes? Well, I let financial advisors write forwards and afterwards, and I've had associations send this book out to their entire list. So there are powerful ways right now that you can leverage these medical associations. You sort of get that halo of credibility. Yeah. Because an association is making an introduction, it's a lot different than you reaching out to them cold. Right. But the other thing I heard, Max, is that that you became the go-to guy among these groups of doctors, and then your name just gets passed around, right?
Correct. Exactly what you described.
Right. And so you want to be smart about taking advantage of this behavior. It's kind of like marketing martial arts. If you know that this is how physicians behave, go with it.
Yeah. And, become their friend and become a resource for other stuff is what it's really all about. And,
right.
You can do that. And physicians are looking, you said something very critical, for a financial advisor they can trust. And why is that? I'll pick on a couple of endodontists. They went out and somebody pitched them a deal. Oh, you'll make, 2% a month off this investment. And they got into it. Nick knows these guys. You can see him giggling over there on the screen.
Yeah, exactly.
And they got taken to the cleaners. And, it's like I had a doctor up in Washington that started investing in apple orchards. Are apple orchards always stable investments? No. All kinds of weird stuff. And so counseling them through that it is really a great thing if someone can learn to do that, to be the trusted advisor. You know, and I used to say things, I know those things sound real sexy, but do you want your money or do you want to just have something that sounds sexy to talk about at your group meetings?
Right, exactly. So if we were to talk at the end of 2019, what I would tell you is that there's an epidemic of burnout among physicians, according to a Medscape study. And I invite you to go to Medscape. You can sign up for a free account and have access to really great data that you can bring to doctors and educate yourself. But according to a recent Medscape survey, about 45% of physicians last year reported being burned out. They reported toxic stress. And probably one of the most frequently asked questions that physicians were asking their advisors is, look, I am done. How do I move up retirement by 5 to 10 years? Like, can you help me do that? And so as we enter into this new era, just know that that is not forgotten. This is something else that should be considered. And Nick, this idea that doctors can't work past age 65, I mean, can employers do that?
We'll have to talk to that in private and look at the ADEA because we'll talk in private about that. I did see that issue, and it's an issue.
They are doing that. Hospitals are doing that.
Just because people, Max, everybody drives 70 miles an hour or less and obeys the speed limit in Utah, right?
Right, no, not at all.
Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, just because there's a law out there doesn't mean that people obey the law. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And but when you're talking about having a financial planner, lawyers are in the same area. I mean, we don't really get trained on financial products and plans. I learn a lot by talking to Mr. Max over there, who has all the securities license, the insurance licenses, and so he can guide me on what's going out in the market space, because there are no courses in law school. I mean, I teach at Campbell, but the thing is we don't offer any financial courses. There is a trust and wealth management section, but you got to specifically go into that where you don't know anything about it. So lawyers have the same problem doctors do. They just really don't get a financial education. It's just not part of the beast. And I like your book, 9 mistakes, money mistakes that doctors make. I think that that's really important, because what gets me, Dr. Vicki, is they can work really hard for their money, because these guys work hard. I mean, they 12-hour day is like a normal day for them, 7 days a week. Okay, then all of a sudden they have all this money, and then it's blown on some investment that just doesn't make any sense. In other words, they lose them like that, bang. And so if we can help them prevent them from doing that, instead invest wisely and put their money into places that'll grow for their retirement. Because what we like to do is to make sure they get in a position where they can retire if they want to, but if they can continue work and serve people, then that's okay too. In other words, so they have control over their financial destiny. And it's a large number that you need today to control your financial destiny. It just gives you freedom. That's all.
Right.
But I think that what you want to do is make sure you avoid those mistakes. I think that's a great book. And can our financial advisors order your books on your website?
Yes, I have. I don't know if this will sound promotional or whether you want me to skip it.
Yeah,
but
no,
I have some slides about how I can actually help people who are serious about this and really want to make some progress. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's put the slides on, because most of our audience is professional financial advisors that are watching right now. So, because I keep checking the boards, these are certified financial planners and financial advisors. So, if you have tools and techniques that help them, let's take a look at those right now. So, get to the nuts and bolts of this rather than the 20,000-foot viewpoint.
Okay. So I take it you're seeing my screen.
Yeah, I see right now jumping to tell. Okay, now let me look at the 9 money mistakes. I like that.
Right. Okay, so one of the things that I highly recommend, if you're not already doing it, is creating digital sales funnels. So I don't think that this is the time to be selling, but I can tell you that historically, when I've gone to my financial advisors and I have asked them, okay, take a look at your top 10 doctor clients. Like, what was the sales funnel? How many contacts did you have to have in order to convert them from prospects to clients? And there were two peaks. One was around 1, and that was the person like me who just got the name from somebody that they trusted, and they went and converted. But on average, physicians had to have about 7 to 10 contacts with financial advisors. This is consistent with the pharmaceutical industry, and they're the real experts at understanding the buying patterns of doctors. Okay, so here's what I did. I had somebody record an audiobook of the 9 money mistakes. And so not only could you potentially use the digital book, but if you set up a digital sales funnel, you got 10 audio files, and those could be your touch points. So this is available too. So, you know, Hank Greenberg said so famously, all I want in life is an unfair advantage. And that's what I do. I'm here to give you an unfair advantage. So feel welcome to go to the Targeting Doctors site, take a look at the blog, you know, see, you can sign up to get on my list so that you're going to be seeing more ideas that you can do, but help yourself to all of the free resources that are there, and you'll find a lot of them. If you are really serious about this, my signature offering is called the Cracking the Physician Code Master Course. And this isn't rocket science. This is probably all of the basic stuff that you've learned about building your business. But the difference here is that this is specifically how to build a physician-friendly practice. So understanding the 10 laws of physician engagement, and how to position yourself so that you're really taking advantage of the natural behavior of doctors is important. I'm also modifying this with an emphasis on what I call physical distance marketing. You know, I'm not sure when you are actually going to be able to get knee-to-knee with doctors, but if you are not doing digital marketing right now, that's also included in the course now. I offer coaching. You know, I offer like a 1-month package or, you know, 6-month and year packages. And sometimes my major contribution is just the little things like looking over an email before it's sent to doctors. Let me tell you about one mistake you definitely want to avoid. Remember I told you that one of the mistakes is failure to fit in. In the world of business, when we're meeting somebody new, we default to the first name. In the world of medicine, we default to the doctor titles. So let's say a doctor is giving a presentation at a medical meeting. You're a friend of the doctor, you raise your hand. You don't say, hey, Frank, what about? No, you say, well, Dr. Green, have you considered? So please don't lose the sale at hello by defaulting to a doctor's first name. Use the doctor title until you're invited to use the name. So these kinds of little coaching tips can mean the difference between being able to move forward and losing the sale at hello. So if you've got a meeting set up, you know, what do you want to do in that meeting? So specific nuts and bolts things really can make a huge difference. Then having yummy treats is important. The pharmaceutical industry spends about 50% of their marketing budget on trinkets. And why? It's because it works. It activates the law of reciprocity. So if I do something nice for you, you're going to do something nice for me. So if you begin the relationship with a gift, it can be something physical. It can be a great idea that doctors can use right now. That is great. Okay, so what mistake do I see being made? Well, it's sort of like being invited over to somebody's dinner, a home for dinner, and then like bringing your photo album from your vacation. I mean, that has meaning for you, but unless you're Annie Leibovitz, that doesn't have a lot of value to your host. You want to bring something that the host will enjoy. So take a look at your marketing materials. Take a look at the messages that you are sending out. Does it deliver true value? And if it does, great, you've got something great, but I've got a whole collection of yummy treats. So, I've got this course about how to jump into telemedicine. You're welcome to pass the link along free of charge. But I also know that it would be nice for you if this value were reflected in you. So I offer a service in which you can co-brand this course. You can have a welcome video. You can have a call to action video at the end, so that your name is then tied with mine. And doctors know that you're part of this value. Maybe you're interested in an audio package. I think this package where you put your name on the cover of these books and write a forward and afterward, this is the highest value yummy treat that I offer. Well, let me just say, The Myth of the Rich Doctor came out 2 years ago. 9 Money Mistakes came out last year. I have been all over the US in front of groups of doctors talking about the myth of the rich doctor. Like, who would have imagined, right? This started as a blog post I wrote on vacation and was shocked to come back home and this had gone viral. So these are proven. There are a lot of advisors who are using this book as sort of the backbone of their marketing campaigns because it works so well. If I had to choose one, I would probably choose the 9 Money Mistakes one for right now. The Myth of the Rich Doctor maybe a little later. And I'm always trying to calibrate the message for what's going on in the market. So, one advisor wrote me and said, do you have like a series of email templates I could send to physicians on LinkedIn about estate planning? And I just had to say, whoa, no. Yes, I got it, but you don't want to do that right now. That is being toned down. So there will be a time for the Myth of the Rich Doctor, but for right now, the 9 Money Mistakes are it. Here is my contact information. Please feel welcome to reach out if you have any questions, if you've got any concerns. All of my products and services are driven by financial advisors. So if you can tell me what your biggest challenges are, I will take that and do what I can to overcome these challenges so that you really can help doctors. There's a link to my online calendar. As my time allows, I'd be happy to spend 15 minutes with you or with your doctor clients doing some laser coaching. So my superpower is sort of seeing opportunities, but sometimes I kind of feel like I'm in the sixth sense, like I see dead people. Seeing opportunities is not always a great thing, but it can be a good thing, and I'd be more than happy to share that gift with you. So that's what I've got for you today.
Okay, well, there were several questions, but I'm not sure we have a lot of time. And this is being recorded, and we can send it out for those of you who have asked that 3 or 4 times. And then we've got your email and website up there, which was one thing that was asked. Now I can't get my questions to advance. Let's see. There was, how can we train the next generation of physicians? And that may be a long answer, but should they just contact you to learn how to do that?
I'm not sure that you want to invest your time doing that. And all right, so there is an entire financial do-it-yourself movement out there. It's headed by an emergency room doctor. The website is the White Coat Investor. So just from a business perspective, investing your time, changing people's minds, it's a real tough go. I mean, I talk about my $40,000 mistake when I, in my expertise, created a product I knew patients needed, but they didn't want it, and it just didn't go anywhere. I would recommend investing your time with people who would welcome your message instead of doing like a public service campaign. That's my strong recommendation. Go to people who are already going to welcome you. That said, I will tell you that people who are in their training, and for those of you who are new to the medical market, let's talk about this. So I went to college for 4 years, medical school for 4 years, my surgical residency for 5 years. So there are advisors who are going in and helping people who are in their last years of either residency or additional training beyond that fellowship. And there are ways that you can help them immediately. For example, they should purchase disability insurance to lock in to the lower rates. You can help them create a plan to effectively manage medical school debt. You can recommend that they negotiate their contract. This can mean millions of dollars. So the average fellowship trained orthopedic surgeon comes out and generates about $500,000 in annual income. If you can help them negotiate like a 10% higher raise over a 30-year career, it's a couple $1 million difference in revenue. So if you want to help the early career physicians, that is what my recommendation is. You help them with those tasks, and then they see that you deliver value, and then you have the opportunity to deliver more value. I spoke with an advisor in Ohio. That's how he got started. He even had like lawyers on staff who would go in and negotiate contracts for the residents. And every single person who took him up on that offer went on to become his lifetime client. And he's, I think he was in his 60s when I contacted him a decade ago. And, he was set for life.
Okay, we pretty much, you covered the questions. You must be watching them over here as I keep through them. But we're out of time, and I'm going to tell everybody they should try and contact you to ask you some of their other questions, because some of them are asking questions about, doctors are challenging to work with or something, and what's the magical phrase? And I think that's a question between the advisor and you that you might be able to help them with. But you've done an awesome job. I personally would love to spend some more time with you. Yeah. And, it is fun to work with doctors. It is different. And I can tell you that from experience. They're great for Nick and I as clients because they fit a profile. We're able to help them. And once we do get them as clients, they're awesome because they do get locked in.
Yeah. And they're with us for like a decade. And like I said, they don't call us up unless they really mean they have something really serious to talk about. They don't waste time, and I like that. So that's good.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Vicki. We are definitely going to have you back on another platform if you're willing to.
I'd be happy to.
And we're going to get in contact with you as soon as one of our providers come out. For people that are interested, you should get her book, go to her website, and learn to work with doctors. They do a lot of pension business. That's all I can say. I mean, pensions are something that are good for them and good for you, but they need financial advisors working with them. And so we're past the hour, Mr. Max. So we're going to wind up.
All right. Yep. Let's take
it. All right.
We're kind of done with questions and we're out of time. So, and I know I've got another meeting in 10 minutes, so I better get going.
Okay. Thank you.
But thank you very much. You've an awesome program and a great topic. And we'll have to talk some more offline.
It is my pleasure. And thank you all for the work you're doing. The physicians are in the trenches right now. And pretty soon we're going to be turning back to our other pandemic